Number 21-1192, and the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-1192. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to our hearing, which is scheduled for 10 o'clock. I apologize, it's about 5 minutes late, but we had to do an executive session. Jennifer, do you want to?
Resolution number 21-1193, reconvening a final hearing to address the Rybob number 620 watershed drainage improvement petition project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-1193. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 21-1194, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence a suspension of Rule 3 speaker registration, Rule 4 limitations, and Rule 7 public comment procedures from the rules governing public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-1194. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Okay, with that, I'm going to kind of go over the ground rules, which most of you are familiar with now, but so we're all on the same page. I'd like to welcome everyone to the continuation of the final hearing for the consideration of the Rybob number 620 watershed drainage improvement petition. There's a sign-in sheet available. We ask that you please sign in. I trust you've all done that. Today, the board will hear an update from Rob Riley with the County Engineer's Office. There will be a discussion on Burgall's claim for damages. The board may address a resolution allowing or denying the claim for damages filed by Rich and Joyce Burgall for the Rybob number 620 drainage improvement petition project. And then there'll be time for additional landowner testimony if appropriate. With that, I believe we're ready. I said Rob Riley, so it's going to be Chris? Okay. I just read what was in front of me. I apologize.
Sorry. Yeah, that was my fault. No fault.
Chris, introduce yourself.
I will. Good morning. Chris Boserman, County Engineer, and Brett Bacon from the Soil and Water District also will be chiming in on this part of the discussion. So this morning I'm here prepared to talk to you about the damage claim on the Burgall property for the Rybob ditch petition project. And we have marked the project in the field and have evaluated impacts and at your request and direction from previous hearings. And I believe the scope of today's discussion is about this damage issue. And so I'll
I'm going
take.
to stop you for just a second because I really didn't complete my, I think for clarity, for the benefit of everyone. The purpose of the meeting is the board may consider finding in favor of the improvement and affirming the order for the Rybob 620 watershed damage improvement. And commissioners may confirm the assessments, approve the payment schedule, or the board may set aside the order for and dismiss the Rybob 620 watershed drainage improvement. The board considers the following in their decision: whether the board hereby finds that the project improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare. The board also finds that it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvement will be less than the benefit. I apologize, but I thought I should get that in there for the record.
Thank you.
Move forward.
Commissioner, also, I can't remember whether Mr. Bosman was sworn in this hearing or not.
That, I don't think you've spoken. Have you spoken on this before?
I have, but I'll be glad to,
Let's
just for the sake of formality,
Raise your right
glad to
hand.
do that.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
Thank you. So the Soil and Water District and members of our staff have evaluated the damage claim issues related to the Burgall property. A report has been filed with your board, and I'll just go through that, not word for word, but topic by topic, so that you can understand and feel free to ask any questions you have about that as we go. We, as I said, marked the line of the improvement and have evaluated an inventory that we received from the Burgalls on 10/4/21 and tried to make an assessment of what we feel are justifiable damages and what are not. So under the, I'll be making references to two sections of the project that are on a map in the back of the report that have different segments of the project identified and tagged. And as we start from north to south, the first section that's being referred to as Main A, there is a rock chute that's created at that location, and there was no claim for damages for the work related to that outlet structure, and no work, no items claimed for the rock chute. There was a claim for construction easement for land in that area. The compensation claimed was $800.92. We're recommending compensation in the amount of $328.37. This is justified by the relocation or realignment of the work on the proposed project that deviates from the alignment of the original project alignment that we've talked about before in these hearings. And we've used the auditor's assessed value, and the acreage involved is 0.04 acres, and we've arrived at a recommended compensation of $328.37 for that 0.04 acres that deviates from the existing alignment. There's a claim for maintenance easement land in the Main A area, and the maintenance easement, this is an explanation that'll follow several different times. Maintenance easements are claimed throughout the course of this project. The maintenance easement value is claimed as new. We contend that there is already an easement there by prescription because of the previous alignment of the existing improvement that was done as a county project. And so we do not believe there's compensation for damages that should be entitled to a project that's already been established as a public project by previous action of the Board of Commissioners. There's an impact claim for trees 75 feet from the center line. Immediate compensation is requested for $1,000 and long-term compensation of $1,000 and immediate or long-term compensation for $2,000. We're recommending compensation of $250 under this claim. This is in the area of the relocation of the project, again, outside the alignment of the existing. And in a previous claim with the damage claim with the Rices on Todd Street, $50 per tree was awarded. We're proposing to use that same number and award damages for the removal of 5 trees that are beyond the location of the existing original project. There's an impact claimed for an electric pole and buried line. We do not expect these utilities to be disturbed by construction, but if they are part of the construction project, and they're not compensable to the property owner. They would just simply be part of the project cost involved. It's a standard practice, not just on petition projects, but on virtually all the construction projects that we bring before your board. So the total recommended compensation for the Main A portion would be for the 2 trees and for the land value totaling $578.37. There was an additional note that the property owner requested that the area be removed, remove the land value of the construction channel from the taxable land amount. This is not a procedure that would be under your purview under these 51 or 6131 proceedings, and could not be addressed in this topic. Under Main B, there are 2 culverts to be removed and replaced. There's a vinyl fence That crosses the improvement that would be removed and replaced, and two-strand electrical fencing that gets removed and replaced, all as part of the project. The total compensation claimed is for $18,500. The driveway culverts would be completed within a day, and there is not a loss of those culverts. They are in fact replaced. With the Bergalts have culverts there now. They'll have culverts there when the project's done, and the period of time of impact will be minimal and we believe negligible. We believe there's no loss to property and therefore no compensation entitled during that time, or entitled them during that time. They claim lost grazing field of 5,000 square feet for 1 year. Again, the access to that grazing field is only as long as it takes to replace the culvert. And so we are not recommending the award of their requested damages of $942.26. They've claimed, again, the construction easement, land that we believe is part of the original maintenance corridor from the original Rybob 620 project. The maintenance easement land, again, is being addressed again under the claim of the existing alignment. Trees, tree removal, any trees that are removed in this section are within the limits of the existing project. We're not recommending any compensation for those, and so we do not recommend compensation for any improvements on the main B portion of this project. The auditor's map also indicates that the area, an area in this portion is not located on the Bergalt parcel. The area is located on property owned by Martin, and no inventory was made on that property, as no claim for damages has been made to your board by those property owners for that activity. Main C, moving south along the improvement, there's a vinyl fence, 3-rail vinyl fence that will be removed and replaced if the fence is damaged. The existing fence is damaged upon removal. It's the contractor's responsibility to replace that with like-kind materials. And the disturbance there is expected to be minimal and to be no loss of property involved in that activity. The two-strand electric fencing, same explanation. That would be the contractor's responsibility under the contract to restore that fence to its existing condition. They've claimed lost grazing field access, again, $942.26. They do not lose the use of that land. There are no land use changes that are created as a result of this project, and we're not recommending compensation. They are asking for compensation for 36,000 square feet of land at a value of $6,784. This is all land that is within the existing corridor of the original project, and we do not believe is compensable. They've asked for compensation for trees in that section, again, within the existing corridor project. We do not believe it's compensable. Under main D, there's land of 14,500 square feet claimed, again, within the alignment of the existing Rybob 620 project, and we're not recommending compensation. They are asking for trees in that same area that are within the alignment of the existing project, and we're not recommending compensation. Under main E, they have a construction easement requested of 41,600 square feet. This project for an amount of $7,839.63. We're recommending no compensation as it's within the original corridor of the Rybob 620 project. Maintenance easement, Again, within the alignment of the existing project and maintenance easements, the maintenance easement would suppose that there are maintenance activities that will damage the property. There is a provision under 6137 of the Ohio Revised Code once a project is on maintenance. If there are damages that occur, and any property owner has the ability to come to your board and claim those damages for those maintenance activities. The trees, again, in this section are all within the existing corridor, and we're not recommending compensation for those trees within the alignment of the existing project. Main F is another claim for construction easement land in the amount of $6,765 for 35,900 square feet of land. That is within the original Rybob 620 project. And the main, the maintenance easement request, same explanation as I've provided you on the previous topics. Trees, the same, those are within the alignment of the existing project. So main F, we're recommending no compensation. There's lateral 2A, there's no construction within the area designated as 2A that's on the Bergalt property, and so there's no discussion of compensations related to that. 2B, there's no construction proposed within that area, and no loss of property or compensation to be awarded in that section. Lateral 3, requested construction easement land again in the amount of $10,600. We're not recommending compensation as it's within the existing alignment, and the same explanation follows for the maintenance easement land in that section. And the same explanation follows for their request for $10,000 of lost trees and $5,000 lost long-term compensation on trees. So in summary, in looking at all of those sections, we are acknowledging the areas that we deviate from the existing alignment of the original project, and recommending compensation in the amount of $578.37. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I'll open up for questions. You have any questions for Mr. Bosman?
I'd just like to thank you for your thoroughness and for Soil and Water too, and taking the time to give us a detailed explanation.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will open it up. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Come forward. And I am going to swear you in again just for the record. Why don't you introduce yourself for the record, then I'll swear you in.
Rich Bergalt, 9032 Todd Street Road.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
There are a number of issues that I believe need to be brought in front of the commissioners based on the August 5th meeting that are as yet undetermined. My recollection was that you were charged with having to decide whether there was in fact an easement beyond, in the case of the ditch, beyond the banks, and in case of the pipe, which is lateral 3, whether it in fact existed. So far, I've heard nothing from the engineer telling us that in fact it exists. If you look at the documents that were provided to you today, and I will not get deeply into it, but I will tell you that Supplement 2, which contains a discussion about whether in fact those easements are there, contains on, let's see, the third page in, which is numbered page 1, a copy of the June 14th map provided by the Engineers Department / Soil and Water. You notice there's a discussion at the bottom about corridors. We were going to have this discussion on August 5th, but it didn't seem to be appropriate. The corridor that's laid out here is approximately 200 foot wide. Discussions on August 5th spoke to a potential bank-to-bank easement, a potential 25 foot beyond the bank easement. Let's see, on a ditch, that would be 75 feet approximately, not 200 feet. Today you heard that everything that we had requested was under this alleged corridor, and therefore not compensable. I would suggest to you that's not correct. The other piece I would suggest to you strongly is if you look at the remainder pages of that document, save the last, there's an Attorney General's opinion from Attorney General Saxby back in the mid-50s when all of the, what is now known as 6131, et cetera, were put into statutory language and gathered together. He was asked to rule on an issue in another county, but in his discussion, he ruled that it would take two actions, two petitions to establish, first, the main easement, i.e. the ditch, and second, any easement beyond that. That would have to be a separate petition to be filed and approved by the county commissioners. That's my contention, our contention. That was never filed. It was never recorded. It doesn't show up anywhere. Certainly legal counsel will take a look at that. I'm sure they'll review that for you and give you some guidance on that. The final piece that I want to put on the table with respect to easements is that you heard some discussion about what could be a 25-foot easement from centerline. And lateral 3, for your information, or at least your consideration, is being proposed by the engineer's office to be moved 25 feet to the south of the current center line, the current existing. If that, in fact, is within the easement, then it establishes another 25-foot easement by operation, I guess. At least that's what I think the engineer would argue. And I think there's some considerations you need to make in there. If you believe that there are no easements except for the main ditch itself and perhaps the width of the pipe from lateral 3, then all the arguments you heard from the engineer just now don't matter, because he's dismissed it as it's part of the project. You will have to make a decision as to whether my numbers are acceptable or his numbers are acceptable in his arguments. You heard from the engineer a brief discussion about laterals 2A and 2B. And you'll remember from our original position that we believe those don't exist. We'll acknowledge that there is a pipe that was laid someplace in the 80s, but there is no record in the auditor's office, there is no record in the recorder's office, and we've seen no record of any easement being established for that. Maintenance easements, certainly not. And each time we receive a new map from the engineer / soil and water department, we get a different view of that part of the project. For example, and you don't have a copy of this, but I'll certainly leave it with you, a map provided to us on the 14th of September by Soil and Water. May I approach?
Sure, go ahead.
Indicates that there may be one, not two, laterals for number 2. Other pieces show 2.
You're gonna have to get back so you can't be,
Sure.
you can't be going
I'll
around.
do this with you.
Okay. And you might repeat what you just said. for the-
Sure. What was just handed to the commissioners is a map showing one, and only one, potential lateral at lateral 2. In other documents that we provided to you today, We will show you that, in fact, lateral 2 has never been ever contemplated. There are maps that go back to 1947. There are commissioner notes that go back to 1947 that describe the project that was approved. And there are absolutely no references to lateral 2, either by pipe or by drain, whatever that happens to look like. With respect to and again, you'll find most of that in supplemental 1. There's notes there. I'm not going to read them all to you. There's maps. The best map that I think sits there in terms of telling for us as landowners is the one that's identified on page 2. That is the project back in 1947. There's no lateral. And that matches everything that the commissioners and/or the people who were petitioning put together. Finally, with respect to what was just walked through, let me make some general comments. In the other document that was handed to you earlier, I wanted to set the record straight.
This document?
No, that was handed to you as part of the package, which doesn't have a SUP 1 or SUP 2 on it.
There were 3 documents that were turned in today.
Yep. Cover looks something like this.
Yep.
Gotcha. I want to set the record straight for a couple things. I appreciate the introduction and method that was described in the engineer's report. Fairly accurate, but not complete. What you need to understand is that in the communication to us as landowners, 2 things were said. Number 1, the Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District has been advised by legal counsel to not discuss any aspect of the Rybob 6 project with you outside of these necessary email communications or outside of the formal hearing. My communications was cut off. I guess that's what you all intended, I don't know. I'm assuming they're acting at your behest. We had asked and we had talked about at the August 5th hearing, being able to sit down with the engineer and talk about what the impacts were. I quote again from a communication. The inventory report is to be prepared has been requested of the county engineer by the County Board of Commissioners. It would not be proper nor fair to the other assessed property owners in the watershed for you to participate or collaborate in the preparation of that report. You'll be provided a copy, and you will have the opportunity to concur with or dispute the recommendations at the December 6th meeting. So pretty much we were cut off of everything at that point. We allowed people on our land twice. By the way, when they came in and marked center line, they didn't mark 25 or 75. We did that. We were told they would not do that. Somehow I thought back on August 5th that was a commitment that was made to us, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's take a look down a little bit more in the report. With respect to Main A, and I'll go back to paralleling what you heard from the engineer. There was a recommendation made by the engineer for $578 and change. It was supported by 5 pictures that they asked you to take a look at. Picture's worth 1,000 words, 5,000 words. I would suggest to you that picture 2 in their package is of a tree that sits on the other end of the property. It is not pertinent. Picture 3 is part of the property that sits in the middle of the property. Neither of those are in Section A. So if 5,000 words are in front of you, 2,000 have just been taken away. I will tell you that we did not go through the rest of the pictures. If I've only got 60% credibility in those, I couldn't go through anymore. It'd be wasting my time and yours. We respect the fact that they reconsidered what was there. We also, unfortunately, respect the fact that the center line marking that they put in for property and that project in the front, Their identification of the property line is off by 20-plus feet. I don't know how they got it. The stakes are there. All you gotta do is look at them. Metal stakes are already in place. Tells you exactly where the property line is. With respect to B, which is the culvert issue, a couple issues there. And again, I'll summarize what's here. Certainly you can read it in more depth. The engineer has you believe that they'll replace the culvert in one day. Perhaps they will. Obviously, they'll be taking down fences. I don't think the fences are going back up in one day. Those fences and/or gates that are going to go in there will separate fields for me. That's fantastic. But I'm not going to throw horses out on fields that are under construction. If I can't use those fields, I still have to feed the horses, that's hay. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm not going to put horses and endanger them on a field which has construction ongoing. If the engineer believes I should be doing that, I would suggest he's incorrect. With respect to the cost of those culverts that we've requested for replacement, the engineer on page 3 of his 3/10 drawings, the big engineering drawings, which I'm sure you've looked at, on page 3, there's a very specific statement, and it says, and I'll quote it, "The existing culvert shall be removed in its entirety and included in this item for payment." That payment goes to the bidder. Later, there's a discussion that says that the only impact I have there is you replace my culvert and then I get to pay for putting a new one in. That kind of sounds like double jeopardy. Kind of sounds like I put it in originally, y'all take it out, the engineer takes it out, I got to pay for the new one, and then he gets to use that to pay to somebody else for doing the project. I think that's a damage to me. Those culverts that are sitting there are $1,000 a piece, there's 2 of them. Backfill and labor, in my number, but you may not choose to do anything with that. With respect to Main C, again, we would share with you that all of the trees back in there, all of the land gets impacted. While construction is ongoing, I lose the use of that land. I will not unsafely graze horses there. And I'm sure as the engineer walked through the property, or the representatives, they saw a lot of blue marks on trees. Those trees are mature. They are ready for harvest. And if you look at the last page of that document that's in front of you, page 11, that's a copy of our current CAUV application, which we've done for the last 18-plus years. And you'll see circled on there, forestry. This isn't new to anybody. Those trees aren't worth $50 a piece, I can tell you that. And any consideration for those trees that are coming to maturity inside of whatever product or project is going to take place needs to come in my direction. Again, sections Main D, Main E, Main F, same arguments. We've given you the argument with respect to lateral 2A and 2B. I note that in some potential motions, lateral 2 seems to have disappeared. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's someone has accidentally dropped it onto main and made it part of the main motion whenever you get to that, should you get to that. I would argue that you can't. That if in fact you're identifying as a lateral, you've got to vote it separately, despite the comments that it has no cost. And we know that's not true, by the way, since they're going to put a breather, or at least propose a breather at the end of one of those laterals, so there's a cost. With respect to lateral 3, I've already told you that lateral 3 is moving. It's going to be 25 foot further south. The maps that you've received already show a, quote, corridor, and a note that a number of the sections of lateral 3 are not where the old lateral 3 was. The engineer's drawings, in fact, say they're going to destroy the old lateral 3. We have yet to hear from the engineer the benefit accrued to lateral 3 like we did the benefits accrued to the farmers involved in the main. I don't know how you can make a decision from my point of view if you don't know benefit versus cost. I would suggest to you that without argument, there is no benefit that's been laid out, so the cost exceeds the benefit, lateral 3 ought to go away. But again, that's my argument, it's not necessarily yours. Finally, and I do this without argument to you or an attempt to upset you, the landowners, well, I guess there's two arguments. One, if in fact that lateral, by the way, has been moved, and on my property it moves 25 feet. So I guess if you have the argument from section main A that it's in a new place, I ought to get some compensation for it. And oh, by the way, to wrap this whole thing up, main A also impacts two landowners. I'm not arguing for them. And lateral 3 impacts a bunch of landowners, and the direction has been changed, so they ought to get something too. A lot of things that are still hung up in the air. And unfortunately, I lost my train of thought, so if you give me a second. Oh, finally, again, without trying to cause you grief, the landowners didn't ask for the latest set of activities, which the engineer in Soil and Water did. You all did. I appreciate you doing that. But as a landowner, I shouldn't have that $2,000+ spread into my pocket. Thanks for your consideration. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner, anyone have any questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Several questions were raised. Soil and Water County Engineer, do anyone want to try to address it the best you can? Would you?
I'll address, Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water. Do you want to swear me?
Sure, swear in. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true stuff you got?
I do.
Proceed.
I'll address specifically the question regarding lateral 3 and the statement that it has been moved south. That is just simply not true. The current status of lateral 3 is the tile exists right in the middle of the surface drain, kind of right, if you envision the surface drainage pattern, the tile is sitting right in the lowest point. Standard construction practice at the time that was put in, that was the case, just to minimize the amount of excavation that was required to put in the tile. The current engineering standards do not support that. So simply, the only thing that's going on there is the tile has been moved to the top of bank of the constructed surface drain. The center of the surface drainage pattern is going to remain in the same place that it exists now, that it has always existed historically. The entire proposed lateral 3 portion of the project would be within that original construction corridor that was done in 1948.
I'd also mention, related to lateral 3, when Mr. Bergault mentioned the plans calling for that to be destroyed, what the plans call for is the existing tile to be crushed and taken out of service. The tile moves within the limits of the waterway, as Brett said, but it's not moved entirely to a new location. It's still within the footprint of the drainage improvements. So there's a question about lateral 2 not being identified or nowhere to be found. The original petition does show the lateral. The confusion may be, excuse me, that our plan shows a 2A and 2B. One is the surface component of that. One is the subsurface tile. So though it's still lateral 2, lateral 2 shows up on the Rybob 620 plan. It's not labeled as lateral 2, but the lateral is shown there. The nomenclature of lateral 2 is likely added by us for to tag it in explanation purposes, but that tile lateral is shown. But there is a difference between the location of the subsurface underground tile and the surface waterway, but they both function as lateral two, and they are there and exist today. So,
And no work is anticipated in lateral two.
there is a breather. Mr. Burgalt's correct. There is a breather to be installed,
Okay.
but it'll be on the existing tile, and that location is where, Brett?
That location would be on Mr. Sheets' property, where the breather will be installed.
The only other, there may be other questions that I didn't note, but I wanted to address Mr. Burgalt's question about the culverts and the double jeopardy of paying for culverts that he already has. The total cost of the culvert removal and installation is part of the total cost of the project. It is not direct assessed to Mr. Burgalt, so the costs related to that tile or that culvert removal and replacement become part of the bigger project that is assessed to the entire watershed. And so he is correct that he would be paying his incremental share of that, but to assert that he's paying for all the cost of the tile is just simply not correct. So he's not being direct assessed for that work on his property. There were other questions that came up that you have.
I do have one. Mr. Burgalt talked about getting this work done in one day and electric fences not being replaced in that same day. On the surface, that's very reasonable. Do you have any comments or thoughts on that?
Our history in working with contractors on these types of things that involve livestock and fences generally involve temporary fence and the contractor making every assertion, every effort not to leave areas unfenced and exposed to where it would put livestock in jeopardy. And we would take that same posture with whatever
So
contractor
if the
we would
project
choose in
took
this
2
case.
days or whatever, that would be addressed.
It would. The culvert itself, there's really no reason it can't be done in one day. We replace culverts on public roads within a day's time of the size that we're talking about here. And so I don't have any concerns that it would be a very short term.
And that would include replacing the fencing
Yes.
or repairing the fencing.
So we'd be glad to add notes to the plan that would specifically direct the contractor not to leave areas of pasture unfenced to the detriment of his livestock.
Other questions?
Yeah, the legal recognition of the easement, maybe that's a question for Eric. I mean, just where are we on that? Again, that's been raised as a issue.
The opinion I provided at the previous meeting was that I was certain that there was an easement that was at least from bank to bank, but it could be greater. You can make certain assumptions based on the engineer's presentation as to what they believe the width of that prescriptive easement is, but that would be good for them to clarify as to what the basis for that determination is, so we can have it on the record.
We have, we've taken the position that when the Rybob 620 project was constructed, it took more space, more physical occupation of construction activities to build the improvement than just simply what we see today in terms of bank to bank. The contractor that was hired by the county to go in and do that work in 1948, thank you, occupied more than just top of bank to top of bank in order to build that. In fact, he probably there's no doubt in my mind, he occupied more area than we will today based on construction methods and current equipment. And so I firmly believe that every activity that will happen related to this construction, except for those I've enumerated, compensation being entitled, will happen within an area that was originally occupied when the Rybob 620 project was constructed. So we'll get more specific about distances. I'd be glad to let you do that. But from a occupation standpoint, the footprint of this project, I've no doubt, will be less than what the footprint was in the 1940s.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Borgo, you had your hand up, you had something else?
No, well, okay.
Did you?
Thought it was,
Scott? Scott, you have
Were you
something?
going to speak?
I was gonna help
Well,
with some
sir,
footage.
let's go.
Certainly, no problem. No, I was gonna help with some footage if the conversation went that direction.
So you're good?
We're good.
I think it might be helpful, actually.
Okay. I'm going to swear you in as well.
Please.
Introduce yourself first.
Yeah, Scott Stevens, Administrator with the Delaware County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
So the footage, just briefly, went back to review the analogous or equivalent 6131 statute from the 1948 project. It clearly stated for construction that there were 75 feet, both sides of the project from center line, that would have been available to the contractor, and then to Engineer Bauserman's report for us to be at that or less than the footprint that the contractor would have needed in that original project. We will certainly be within that distance. But there is a footage stated in the old section of the code, the 1948, well, it was actually before that, but what would have been the prevailing statute at the time.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you. They've already been sworn in, so just
Thank you, I
proceed.
appreciate it. I think what's in front of the commissioners,
Reintroduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Rich Bergault, 9032 Todd Street Road. I think the issue with respect to any kind of maintenance on this project back in 1947, 8, 9, in front of the commissioners, is whether there was anything filed to establish a maintenance easement on this project, and there was not. Therefore, you may get bank to bank, but you have nothing else. There's no support for that. You just heard Scott talk about, well, the statute said, 75 feet each side to get the project done. Yep, cool. I can't argue, I don't have the statute in front of me. But it doesn't establish it after the project is done. And again, the Attorney General's opinion back in the mid-50s was that it was imperative that the group working with this project petition the commissioners for maintenance easement, and they did not. That's simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, do you have anything to add from your perspective, or?
I think the statute in question refers to, at the time that this improvement was constructed and approved in the 40s, there was not a mandatory maintenance component. However, property owners could request maintenance activities to be conducted on that improvement. And the statute in question actually sets forth the width of the easement in the event that that maintenance activity took place. Now, that was then superseded decades later, because when the 6137 was established in, was it 1957? There was a duplication of maintenance procedures. They did not actually, the General Assembly did not actually remove the previous maintenance provisions until, I believe it was the early 1980s. So I think the argument that I'm hearing from the engineer is that you had a prescriptive, not a recorded easement, but a prescriptive easement based on the language of the statute at the time. So that's what you'll have to determine whether you accept or not. The statute did allow for the county to go in upon the request of a property owner to conduct maintenance activity on that constructed improvement, and the easement would have been 75 feet from center line.
Just a point of clarification, Eric, I wondered if you would just clarify then the law as it concerns to those who are involved in the petition contacting us, that was just referred to, that Mr. Bogart mentioned that I believe you were saying that he was cut off from contact with us.
The reference to advice of legal counsel was not me. That was legal counsel for the engineer or Soil and Water. I'm not aware of those discussions.
Okay, I know that we, as separate commissioners, do not, we have and I thought this was in the law, that we are to act as a judge, hearing the evidence, and we do not ex parte talk to those involved in the petition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You are for purposes of these types of hearings, consider yourself a quasi-judicial body, making a ruling in terms of the rights and obligations of parties appearing before the board. So yes, that's always been my advice,
Okay.
that any communication with the commissioners should be strictly through the formal proceedings, not outside of that. Now, the county engineer and Soil and Water, they're presenting evidence. They have certain statutory responsibilities as a part of this process. Communications between them and property owners, I don't see it as a quasi-judicial issue.
Right,
But I wasn't involved in that
Okay.
recommendation.
okay. You answered my question. Thank you.
I'd be
Go
happy
ahead.
to address.
Reintroduce yourself.
Yes.
Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District. It was my email to Mr. and Mrs. Bergault that Mr. Bergault referenced. We were advised by our counsel from the Delaware County Prosecutor's Office following the August 5th hearing, because the hearing was in progress, has been in progress for some time, that we should keep our communications between ourselves and the Bergaults to those email communications to establish and perform the inventory requested by the board and to this formal hearing, because the hearing was in progress. So
Right.
we follow
Great.
the advice of I make it a good practice to follow the advice of our legal counsel when it's given,
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the record, I don't disagree with the advice. It's just I wasn't the one who gave it.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Your thoughts?
Well, let's see, moving forward, our next issue then, Eric, I'm going to turn to you on this.
We're either,
Our next motion,
I think we're either allowing the claims or not. That's the,
Well, if you are of the opinion that you have concluded any evidence you're going to accept on the claim for damages and compensation, then, yeah, you're confronted with either allowing the claim or denying the claim or
Okay.
continuing the matter to consider it. I mean, those are your options at this point. There already has been a claim that was allowed, so no matter what action you take, there needs to be a recalculation of the assessments before you move forward with approving the project. You could, at any point of the proceeding, decide that you're of the opinion that you should deny the project. So, I mean, those are all of your options that you have at this point. With respect to the claim, allow it, deny it, or continue the matter for further consideration.
I guess the question is, do my fellow commissioners, do you feel any need any additional information you need, any questions that would require another continuance, or your perspective, your views?
yeah, no, I don't think I
Yeah, I
need
think we've gone far
any
enough.
more
Yeah.
information. So the first motion would be on the question of allowing or disallowing the claim? Okay.
Either allowing or not allowing the claim.
But
Right.
there's the.
But there's the amount.
Yeah, there's the amount. I mean,
So that would be woven into the resolution, the amount?
Yeah, I mean, that's for your determination. There is a resolution drafted for you to allow the claim, and there's a resolution drafted for you to deny the claim. You have information, you have a recommendation and evidence from the engineer as to what they recommend the amount is. You have the actual claim itself. You can pick
Okay,
any number.
I'll
It's
go
not-
ahead and make the
you're not-
motion then,
you're not
Mr. Chairman.
tied to anything other than the evidence and your determination of that evidence.
Okay, I will have the clerk read the resolution then, allowing the claim for $578.37, which is the amount that the engineer has suggested after research. Soil and water and engineer.
Resolution number 21-1195, in the matter of allowing a claim for damages in the amount of $578.37, filed by Richard and Joyce Bergault for the Rybob number 620 Drainage Improvement Petition Project.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 21-1195. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
And then we have the choice of closing the public hearing or also taking action on the whole petition.
So now we have
Well-
to continue
You
with
will
the
have to continue
recalculation.
the
We have to
matter.
continue
have to
You want to
that.
continue it for
Recalculation.
recalculation of
Okay.
assessments.
Oh, that's
And then
right.
there are
Okay.
new notices that will be generated and sent to the property owners. And
Okay.
at that time, the reconvening of the hearing, then you make your determination as to the
I'll
project.
move then that we close oh, I'll ask our clerk, please, to read the motion closing the public hearing.
We're,
We can-
No, no,
we
no.
we
continue.
need to
We gotta
Oh, I'm
continue
sorry.
the hearing.
Continuation.
Yeah.
Continuing, yeah,
Yeah.
right,
I-
continuing the public hearing.
I have proposed a date to the board, but I believe that one of you has a conflict. So we are now looking at April 11th.
Double check, I think. I'm
Check,
good.
just so we
Yeah, sure.
don't go through this.
Yeah, I don't want to have to set another date.
We said April 11th?
Yes.
Right,
it is a
that's 1
Monday.
week after April 4th.
That works for me, Jen.
As best I can tell, that's good. And
Okay.
try to get us on our calendar so we don't.
Yes. Resolution number 21-1196, setting date and time for the continuation of the final public hearing for consideration of the Rybob number 620 Drainage Improvement Petition Project. And we are looking at Monday, April 11th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded, discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 21-1196. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Landowners will now receive a letter notifying them of the revised cost and the date of the hearing. That letter will be sent certified mail.
Okay.
So we have voted for continuation, so we are back to regular business.
Yes.
So with that, we do have a presentation from Delco that we had to move because of several things going on. So I'll let you come forward and introduce yourselves, and we look forward to the presentation.
No, my calendar said 9:30, but I always thought this thing started at 10, and I got on the website and it said 10 o'clock, so I got here at 9:37 thinking I was nice and early, but it was my fault. I apologize.
Not a problem.
You're not setting a very good example for your new
Not
county
a problem.
administrator here.
Yeah.
They probably think we're pretty lax here in this county. They can figure out when we're supposed to be here.
Okay,
Well-
we ready? Okay. Delco, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and who you brought with you, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Merrill. My name's Glenn Marsliff. I'm the General Manager, CEO of Delco Water. Christina Dye is with me today. She's our Chief Business Officer. I'm approaching 10 years with Delco Water. It'll be 10 years this coming March, so well, time has flown. I remember meeting Gary when he was considering running for office
That's right,
back
we did. I think
probably
you came from
13.
Florida, if I remember correctly, did you?
Yeah, it's been quite a while ago. Well, I appreciate you getting them on the calendar today. Typically, we try to do these things every other year, but we had a big update to bring you in 2019, where we're actually actively working on a plan expansion, so we put everything back to 2020, and then lo and behold, the pandemic happened. So we're 4 years since the last time I've been before the county commission to kind of give you an update on what's going on with the water utility that serves the region here. And, you know, the reason we do this, we always start off, you get the first, you know, you're the headliner of the tour, right? But we always try to get to the larger townships and some municipalities to kind of try to connect the water utility with the local government. So, you know, there's a lot of self-reliance on zoning and those type of things that go back and forth, economic development, those kind of things. So we try to do these, kind of give you an update, what's going on, what we're working on, and certainly willing to hear any information back from the governments as well. But that's why we're here, so I appreciate you getting us on the agenda, and it's been quite a while. I think you all know this, but we are a nonprofit cooperative. Yeah, it's working. We have a 9-member elected board of directors. I think we're the 8th largest water system in the state, serving 50,000 connections now we're up to. Second largest for service area, about 825 square miles with over 2,200 miles of pipe. And we just entered our 8th county. We're now in Knox County as well as the other 7. We're excited that we were a 2021 top workplace. And something I never thought would happen is we actually have signs on front of our offices now that says we are now hiring. I've always felt very, you know, I've always given like the nice pat on the back to the folks that are along London Road, all the industrial complexes that are always having the challenges to meet the demands that they have for staff. But we actually have some of the challenges within our organization that we never had before, which is attracting talent and keeping talent. As far as the coronavirus, one of the things, we really thought we had some great leadership from our board. We were able to step in very early and provide this COVID hardship program that you see in the bottom here. We actually wrote off customer bills that had an impact by the pandemic. So we were able to write off up to $50 per month. The customers had to apply every single month. But if it was a bona fide issue related to the pandemic, we were able to write that off. And this was a really big help to avoid customers getting significantly into the arrears. And I know Administrator Davies will tell you from her former career that this has been a really godsend for us to try to keep people either paying their bill, keep them used to paying their bill, or else, you know, if they weren't able to do so, that we had this program. The funding has run out from that, but it would really help us get through the pandemic. And then we did offer a vaccine incentive, and over 70% of our staff have got the vaccine, so we're excited about that. We took advantage of having everybody homebound early in the pandemic, and we did our first ever outside customer satisfaction survey. And our perception was that our customers appreciated us very much, and it's pretty traditional that the wastewater, public works is pretty appreciated by the customers, but the group that did this for us said even within our industry, the performance that we had from our satisfaction survey was off the charts. We had over 50% of our respondents give us a perfect 10 for their satisfaction.
That's
So
really good.
really excited. Yeah, we're really excited about this. Still have some significant work to do, some things around, you know, the concerns with contaminants, that kind of thing. So we're continuing to work on the branding and also providing, you know, transparent information. But we were very excited that was accurate. We also were able to spin up a member advisory committee. So we have a set of individuals that were interested in doing more for the organization, and we've used them to kind of advise the board, get another set of eyes looking at things, particularly things around customer service. In fact, we're working on a new platform for a third party that would actually physically mail the bills try to get folks converted to electronic bills, paperless billing, and this will allow us to do some new things with technology, text to pay, those type of things that we've not been able to do before. So one of the things that's come out of that member advisory committee. We opened a brand new facility at a Marengo office up in Morrow County, and one of the few things we did that really was premium timing, right? So we did not have a drive-through up there prior to this, and this opened in January 20, just prior to the pandemic, so we were able to close up the offices, and of course the one here in Delaware already had a drive-through, be able to keep the staff safe, but be able to service customers. So we're really excited about that, and it's a brand new space for our Marengo staff, something that they've kind of had a very outdated office, and it also was an office that was kind of a converted garage, so really excited to give them a really nice office environment. So the reason we didn't come in 2019 was because we were actively expanding our Olentangy facility, and this has since been completed in early 20. Expanded this by 1/3 from 19 to 29 million gallons per day. That's active and running. During the pandemic, our chief deputy, Shane Clark, I brought him with me before several times when we've spoken to you. He was able to use the work from home situation to actually do an in-house master plan update. Typically, we go out to the consulting community to do this, but really confident that, he'd done these things in the past. He worked for consulting firms prior to, that's over 20 years ago, he's been with Delco. But really able to look on a very granular level, what to expect for future development, and be able to put that into future water demands. Really feel like we've been able to do a better master plan than any consultant could have done for us, because we know our system better. And Shane had capacity to do it, something that typically isn't the case, but because of all the things that were related to the pandemic, we're able to do that in-house. So that's for the next 20 years, really looking at the future growth and the demands and all the capital needs associated with that growth. On the financial side, we're working on with Stantec to build a 10-year, a much more detailed financial model than we've had in the past. Really takes a lot of input, really able to look long-term, further out as to what our rate needs might be. And also, we took advantage of their expertise to do a capacity fee evaluation. I'm sure you've all heard that the city of Delaware is currently engaged in a lawsuit about some of their connection fees, and that got our concern. We were pretty confident that our capacity fee was done appropriately and would stand up to any concerns that folks had, but bringing this third-party expert in, we took advantage of that to make sure. So one of the things that was identified in the master plan is, we told you we just finished the expansion of our Olentangy plant, and now it's time for us to start the expansion of the Ralph Scott plant. This is the one that's at the base of Allen Creek. It's actually going to be there's going to be a few phases in this, but the first phase would happen fairly soon. In fact, we've already applied to the Army Corps, trying to work to get both a lease expansion to acquire more space for this expansion of this project, and also for an extension of that lease, which I think expires in 2028. So we can continue to operate that plant and also expand that. Also, the City of Columbus has announced that they're going to build their 4th water plant. I'm sure you all remember that the site on Concord Township they acquired back, 5-6 years ago, something along that line. But thanks to the leadership there, and thanks to the best relationship we've ever had with the City of Columbus, they're including us in this expansion. Will provide us some redundancy and some other things. So we're really excited about that. Other new projects going on. There's just a lot of transmission, a lot of elevated tank storage that's in the immediate demand, including we've been actively working on trying to get a site for a Berlin Business Park, a new elevated tank up there, working with your ED staff, county engineer, and others on that. So something that we're hopeful we'll be able to stay in front of that future development.
Before you go on, that was probably my number one question for you, since the Berlin Business Parks are probably our largest economic development planned community for the future growth. What's the timeline, and do you have a location at this point?
We don't. We've been close a couple times, and it's just kind of slipped out of our finger. We were unable to. So we had a site that was in contract, but we were unable to get the DOT to give us access to the site. It was actually fronted 3637, and it was going to require a a new drive, and of course, we don't have a lot of traffic in and out of our elevated tank sites, but just they have some limited access right away up there, and just would not give us a permit to get access to the site. So that site slipped out, so we're continuing to look for a site. The elevated tank takes 2 years after we acquire the site, for design and construction, give or take. We already have transmission up Lackey Old State, right? So anyone that's any site that's in close proximity to that, we could serve today pretty well. But ultimately, we're going to need the elevated storage up there and some more transmission line that's going to go east-west on 36, 37 to serve the park long-term. We feel pretty confident we're going to be able to keep up with it, but of course, if someone picks a site that's, a mile and a half down the road, we couldn't serve them today. And we need to build that infrastructure to be able to do so. But it's certainly front and center in our to-do list, and our board is very aware and actively encouraging us to find the site. So that's something we've been working on, and we have contacted several property owners over the years.
Obviously, I was gonna say, obviously, water, sewer, transportation are all, and the other infrastructure are all critical for the success of the Berlin Business Park, which is huge for Delaware County. We were just talking this morning about the second interchange. Those plans are coming together and moving forward. That's critical. We got to have that in place. We're building a sewer pump station. That's moving forward. So whatever you can do to keep things moving on the waterfront, that would be great.
On the waterfront, sounds like a movie.
On the waterfront.
Starring Berlin Bandit.
Do you need an elevated piece of ground, or just the height of the tower going to address that? Is that really, or just somewhere in between?
Well, it can be engineered, if the site is low, it costs more to build height. I mean, there are several things, if the further it is from our transmission line, the more transmission line we have to build to get to it, or the more driveway needs to be
So that's a bigger
constructed.
issue.
So it's just a give and take. We've probably talked to 4 or 5 different property owners and thought we were really close, and they just keep on slipping away. But I think we're going to find one soon. I think so.
That's a good idea, though, Commissioner Benton.
What's that?
I like that.
On the waterfront?
Yeah, the water. Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, we appreciate it,
Oh,
because it is critical.
go ahead,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
You guys have been great to
very
work
much a
with.
focus of ours. Another exciting thing, we just had this approved at the last board meeting, is the brand-new distribution and engineering complex. We haven't built a new building in well over a decade, and actually these individuals have been in one of the original locations that were built back in the early 70s. So like the garage space, for instance, is going to be 60-foot clear, so they'll be able to pull a trailer vehicle in there, store it, and whereas today we actually, certainly during all the winter months, we have to take the trailers off and back them into the garages and those type of things. So it's significantly more efficient, and it's going to be a great space. We're going to have some new training facility space in addition to this building, so we're really excited about this one.
Where's
sorry?
this building going?
It's
your 315?
if you know our campus, you got it's now the Terry Administration Building. I'll talk to you about that in a second. The Administration Building, and then we have the Welcome Center, which houses our IT, and then this building will be in the kind of the third one back. And then we have maintenance, and then ultimately the plant's the furthest back. But it's going to be back in a row. We're not going to have anything out front along 315 anymore.
Okay.
We're going to take those. We're going to demolish those buildings eventually, and this is going to have a more walkable campus and have everything in reasonable proximity for the staff to be able to engage more with each other. So I just mentioned we renamed our administration building after Sandy Terry. Some of you may know her. She worked with us for 44 years. Her health is not great. She's in hospice now, but she's still doing pretty well. But she retired in 2018 due to health concerns, but really excited that we were able to recognize her. We actually had a really nice outdoor event, at Time of the Times during the pandemic, but excited about that. Some of you may have known.
Just a quick question. What's your annual revenue?
We're about $30 million for water sales.
Okay.
And then tap sales, of course, that varies a little bit more, but,
Okay.
Yep.
And you have a CFO, right?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Just
Yep.
curious.
yeah, we still count the beans and everything else.
I think CFO is very important. That's what I was wondering.
Some of you may have known Bill Cole. He was on our board for a little over 30 years. He was a resident of Genoa Township. but he passed away on his 94th birthday of the coronavirus, actually. He had
dear.
breakthrough COVID, but lived a great life and just loved to be able to serve rural water and Delco water specifically. So thought I'd mention his service to you. And just a couple slides to close here. Really so value the partnerships we have with Delaware County, the Regional Sewer District. It's been a great partnership since I've arrived, but it's got better and better with Mike and with Tiffany. We work regularly. In fact, we have a meeting later on today for some things they're helping us with. So really appreciate their service. We already talked about the economic development team, Scott and the EMA, the county engineer. Have great relationships with our school districts. We fund a water-related classroom grant program, amongst other things, with Olentangy. We've really done a nice job this year. In fact, Chris has led this, engaging our fire departments. It's always been a little bit of a challenge. They want to flush the hydrants. I know that it's really important to them to get the hands on the hydrants and those type of things. And the challenge is it creates some water quality problems. So we've done a better job than ever before coordinating that effort, and it's cut down our customer complaints by about 80%, right? So we had about 50 customer complaints last year, and it was less than 10 this year. And we think that's because of this new engagement we have with the fire department. We've given them some signage that they can put out front of neighborhoods when they're getting ready to flush, and at least folks know what that water quality challenge is related to. So it's really been helpful. And then with our nonprofits, we have the Delco Water Fund at the foundation. We're talking about funding with them in United Way, a significant grant for this housing, attainable and affordable housing study that's going on with United Way. You may be aware of that. So we're talking about helping them fund that. We work regularly with the Alpha Group, People in Need, the Soil and Water District, and Stratford. Last time I saw Gary was at Stratford. And speaking of Gary, this is actually something that he kind of initiated, was bringing us our first outside company to do some billing with. So we now bill sewer for Dornock Estates, and we've taken their delinquent billings from about 20% down to 0. And we're trying to work with some other organizations, some municipal organizations, really try to get a hold of that. And then at some point, we think in the future, we're going to come back to you and say, we think the best thing for our members and your customers as well is to send a single bill out for water and sewer. But we're not ready for that size of utility just yet. We want to get a little bit better at that craft.
And that could affect the county as well.
Oh, yeah, a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's worked out really well you mentioned Dornock. and-
Yep.
And I did put that in play, and of course, you and the board made it happen. And I'm not on the board, so my comments are kind of a little bit of a distance, but it seems worked out extremely well.
Yeah, I think it's done everything that they
Everything
hoped,
we
right?
wanted to accomplish.
It's disconnected HOA fees from the sewer fees. People understand it's separate, and they're paying them. Everyone's paying them, so it's working out perfect. We had some system expansion going on. So we finished the connection with Mount Air. They're on our system. We're doing some punch list items, but that project's essentially finished. We told you we're starting to work into Knox County a little bit. Waldo is something that we're trying to get up 23. I think this has the possibility of being maybe some workforce housing and stuff up there. If we can get water up there, they already have a sewer plant on site. In fact, we've got a press conference tomorrow with the governor's office. I'm not going to tell you what that's about, but we're excited about Waldo, excited that the Ohio EPA has kind of stepped in and helped us do some funding up there. We're going to have a real hard time for those residents to be able to pay for the construction of a brand new water system. If you're not familiar, Waldo does not have a system today, so this would be all brand new. But between what EPA is going on, and you maybe hear this press conference tomorrow, it's good things for Waldo and for the region.
How far up 23 do you go now, Glenn? Norton
Road? Well, we did an extension the last 2 years. We're almost up to the village of Norton, which is just south of town there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're pretty close then.
We're getting close, yeah. We extended a couple miles in the last year and a half in anticipation of this project. We've tried to do everything we can to make this thing go, but it's been a challenge. We needed a funding partner to step in, and Ohio EPA has done that for us, so we're excited about that. And then just to close, we continue to have this shared vision, right? It's about public health and safety, first and foremost, affordable, value-added service for our members and your residents, reliable infrastructure, that economic development piece we've already talked about, something very important to us. And just anywhere we can cooperate and synergize, that's something we value too. So any other questions for me today?
Yeah, how many customers of the 50,000 or so customers, how many are in Delaware County?
About 44?
So we're still almost 90%.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We've got 4,000 or so in Morrow County, maybe a couple thousand in Marion, and then the other counties are pretty low count, you know,
Okay.
hundreds or even single digits. We've got 3 in Knox and 6 or 7 in Crawford, but a few more in Union and a couple hundred in Franklin County. But the great majority are still in Delaware County, and 8 of our 9 board members are Delaware County residents.
Okay. I thought it was interesting that you expanded in Mount Air. You know, that village has had some struggles, and I know you really helped them out, so, you know, kudos for doing that. You know, there is a lot of public money available now with ARPA and with, you know, this infrastructure bill and the state-funded dollars from last summer's budget bill. You know, it sounds like maybe you've incorporated some of that into the Waldo expansion. What about other initiatives to take advantage of this funding that is available for capital improvements?
Well, we're always looking for, you know, the new Infrastructure Act that came out, so how that money actually gets distributed is still to be determined. But we're active in the state revolving fund, something we've never borrowed to prior to Mount Air. We've never used the state revolving fund in our history. We always tended to get our funding from the Rural Development Program and USDA. It's been a better fit for us historically. But the SRF has changed. The governor and even the prior governor, they really put this focus on regionalization, something that, you know, we're all about. We're a regional water utility. So they put a big incentive in there, and that's how we got the funding. In fact, we're trying to fund the Waldo project out of that USDA-RD, and it just wasn't working out. The funding just wasn't there. It was going to be, you know, $65, $70 water bill plus the sewer bill that the residents pay, and they just couldn't afford to pay that. But in the case, the revolving fund for Ohio EPA is stepping in and helping us with that, along with maybe some of those other funds that you talked about. We did get funding in Knox County in Centerburg for some renewal. I think I misspoke before. I told you we just had a handful in Knox County. I think my county's confused. Licking County, we only have 3 or 4. We've got a lot of customers in Knox County, the village of Centerburg. Back on topic, we got some funding to renew some pipelines in Centerburg and in Edison up in Morrow County. We did not get the funding in Delaware County, but we don't have as many needs here right now. We're in pretty good shape. We've already completely replaced the pipelines in Sunbury we're working on, and Galena it's entirely new pipe system in Galena. We've replaced that. And yeah, we're looking, you know, we want to be as efficient as we can with funding, so we'll keep looking for that. We're trying to take advantage of some lead pipeline replacement program Ohio EPA is running. Centerburg is the only spot we know we have lead service lines, so we're replacing those out using that program.
Well, again, thank you. You guys do an outstanding job. You're very, very important for Delaware County and economic growth, and development, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for all you do. You guys do outstanding work.
I'm curious, Waldo, do they have one deep well serving the village of Waldo?
No.
Or does everybody has their own wells?
Their own shallow wells.
Each
and
house?
it's been a health concern, right? Because the Ohio EPA required them, and the Department of Health required them to put a sewer system in a few years ago, because the concern was that the septic and the shallow wells were too proximate to each other, right? So they do have a central sewer system now, and obviously any further concerns would be remediated by a new water system. So if you go to GNR, you might want to get bottled water. Just saying.
I'd like to thank you for your contribution to the housing study that the Delaware County Housing Alliance is going to undertake regarding housing. And I remember meeting you, it was 7 years ago, and you've just done a great job, Lennon. Thank you so much. We are very well served. here in Delaware County.
Yeah, it's a privilege to work to serve in this region. We have they're the best customer base of any water system in the country right here in our spot. So, and it's the board is very supportive, and we're very agile. I mean, we were able to spin up that COVID hardship fund like within a week when this thing hit, when we really saw that this was going to be a big burden for some folks. And of course, Delaware County, I would say the burden wasn't as bad as it was in maybe some of the more urban areas, but
Sure.
those who were affected pretty significantly, and we were able to help them.
I remember when I took a tour, the reservoirs were very low, and back during that unusual situation, and I think things have been done to kind of make sure that doesn't become an issue in the future.
Well, things are good today. We were able to build the Schreiber pump station in a partnership with City of Columbus. We built the Delta Reservoir with them, and we're able to access that water from the O'Shaughnessy, and that source water is keeping our reservoirs full, right? But the concern is if we keep growing and we don't continue to either get customers to use water differently, we could be back in that same place again. If you had 20% more customer base, and that was 2012, so we're already up 10%, something from that time.
You do get some water, or have the potential of getting water from the underground reservoirs on the northwest side of our county from Columbus, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. That's what led to the so it's really changed things today, right? So we've got a pretty good drought contingency plan today. But if we continue to grow and we don't continue to find additional sources and additional treatment capacity, eventually we'll be back in that position. So we're looking out, we have access to additional source water. We have 2 more reservoirs to build with City of Columbus, right? So the Doubt was the first, and there's 2 more reservoirs with them. And we have some additional groundwater resources that we've already purchased that are waiting for us to tap into. And that gets us about another 20, 25 years, depends on the pace of growth and the way customers use water in the future. If we do more EPCON housing and less single-family big lots, then that water will last longer, for instance. But we need more source water. We're working with Columbus on some things right now, trying to see if we can find some other sources without going too far away. We've got some other things in mind, but that's one of the things that's hopefully will be my legacy. I have quite a few more years to work still, but I really want to make sure that we're positioned to grow for the next 50 to 100 years, not just the next 25.
And we know we're going to grow. So.
Pretty confident, yep. Pretty confident of that.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Glenn.
I just want to
Chris,
say thank
thank
you.
you.
You're involved in a lot of things. I saw you at Stratford a couple, 3 weeks ago, and you represent us with Morpsey, one of the people that we appointed.
Yeah, thank you for that
right.
appointment.
You find many ways to get involved, and that speaks well of not only you, but Delco and your board. So thank you for all you're doing.
My pleasure. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much. Welcome, Tracy.
Good to see you.
Glad to have you here.
Good to be working with you in a new role.
Right, thanks so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that brings us to reports. Tracy, do you have any report today?
Just to thank everyone for the wonderful reception, all of the hard work last week. It was a great event and got to see a lot of faces I already do and meet a lot of new people.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to thank our staff who worked very hard on the reception, and we had literally a few hundred people the last Thursday night coming to meet Tracy, and it was a great reception. And also, I attended and was on 2 panels for the township officials training given by the prosecutor's office, and it was an excellent training, not because I was on the panels, but just there were many experts there, and it was really covered so many different areas that new trustees, it was mainly for new trustees, although I did see several trustees that weren't new, which is great too. But very, very good job by Prosecutor Schiffel and her staff on that. And that's it.
Commissioner Benton?
Just a couple of things. I did also want to acknowledge the team that put on the reception Thursday evening. I mean, it was phenomenal. I bet there were easily 200 people there, and it just went so seamlessly. Many of the people who came had not been in the new Ag Center building yet. So
That's
it was
right.
great
They-
exposure for the fairgrounds and the Ag Center, for future business, as well as just justification of the bed tax. Because the bed tax is what
Yes.
what enabled us to take that huge leap forward at the fairgrounds. Morphe's Executive Committee had some interesting topics, got into the infrastructure, the federal bill, as well as the state bill, but mainly the federal bill. They're going to hire a person who will help us with grants, who's available to help all the members with grants from the federal infrastructure bill. So that they should be able to help us understand and avail ourselves of opportunities there. State capital budget came up, need to get applications submitted in January. Encourage local projects to get quantified and submitted. I think Delaware County will get a little better look this time, hopefully. I think we're getting some recognition that we're getting shortchanged on the state capital budget and other funding. Got a Treasurer's Regional Advisory Board call this afternoon. Land Bank is tomorrow, 2 o'clock. CCAO Winter Conference is Wednesday through Friday, and we got the legislative update Friday if we're not at the CCAO conference still. So anyway, a lot going on, as always.
I just have a couple things. Tomorrow I also have 911 meeting in front of the Land Bank meeting. And we all were busy Saturday. Commissioner Lewis was involved with the trustees and.
Oh, well, yeah, I forgot to mention. I went to.
Commissioner Bidden, do you want to mention that?
Yeah, I forgot to mention. I apologize. Andy Thompson retired, and they had a reception for him, and he's a Thompson Township trustee. Engineer Boserman was there, as was prior engineer Fred Stoltz. And there was a nice crowd. It was Andy's family, a lot of Thompson Township residents and folks who knew Andy. 52 years he was a township trustee, which I think is the longest continuous serving trustee ever in the state of Ohio, which is, again, just remarkable. I read the proclamation, the crowd, I think the attendees really appreciated it, and he did.
Yeah.
So it was just a really nice event.
Yeah, that's great.
So we all had something going on Saturday. I attended the Friends of the Trails. They basically are, lack of a better word, the decommissioning after all these years, because the trail's pretty well done in our county, and Preservation Park's going to kind of pick it up from here. And Bill Shelby and Randy Bennett spoke and kind of gave the history, and it was glad I was able to attend, and it was amazing what's been done over the last 30 years. This was just a dream, and you can imagine the work when you're building these in little bitty segments, and the persistence that they displayed over this time frame is unbelievable. And Randy kind of teared up when he spoke. He was kind of one of the initiators, and as he thought about the beginnings and where they are, and it was a great event. I enjoyed being part of that. And with that, if there's no other business to bring before us, we are adjourned.
Thank you.